Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching this video from. I've recently set up a demo in our lab for a prospect in Mongolia who wanted confirmation that Oracle DataPump export and import can be used for Delphix ingestion into a dSource. Currently, this customer is doing daily DataPump export on some of their databases in production. It would be ideal, therefore, if Delphix can just make use of these existing dump files instead of asking for a separate, like RMN backups and etc. So this is the objective of this demo. I wanted to immortalize this into a video before I eventually delete this lab. So let's look at the overall architecture in my lab. On the left side is the source databases where the export is happening on a daily basis. So in my lab, the export will go into a folder called dpexp dir. And I actually do have a small little script to run this export, simulating the customer daily dump process. So once the dump files is in the directory, we then perform an SCP and copy it over to another directory in our staging push server into this directory called dp_imp_dir. And once the dump files are there, we can then perform an impd import, and that would import and the database files into the right location in our dSource structure. So once that is done, we then can use Delphix SnapSync to snapshot the dSource, and from there we can provision VDBs into the downstream environment. Now do note that for DataPump, the source DB and the target DB, our dSource, must be in open mode when import and export is being performed. The thing is, our dSource is always in mount state. So before the import take place, we have to make sure we alter the database to open so that the import will be successful. And once that is done, we have to bounce the dSource back to mount state in order for the SnapSync to be successful. The second thing to note is the DataPump import overrides the dSource every time. Due to this, the usual point-in-time provisioning of the VDB that we are all used to is not possible here because of the nature of the import and export that overrides the database. So let's go into my lab now. So on the left side is the Oracle source server, and on the right is the Oracle target where the staging disk is. Let me show you that I have created this script to help me with the dump process. So the script basically will do a couple of things. Number one is we make sure that we are in the correct Oracle home and then pointing to the right SID. Then we make sure we remove whatever existing dump file created during previous run. And then we execute the data dump export utility, logging in as DelphixDB, and then pointing to this data dump directory, which was pre-created, pre-configured to point to this dpexp dir, and the dump file name we'll use is delphixdpdmp, and the log file dump will be delphixdb.log. And we are running the export, the DataPump export at the schema level, and the schema we've chosen is called Delphix DB. Now let's just go and take a look at the database. So we have our source database, which has a schema called Delphix DB, and inside Delphix DB there's a table called employees, and this select command here is already showing the employees table. And you'll notice that the virtual DB and the source are having the exact same data now. This virtual DB was previously provisioned. Remember, we have the source, which went through the process, and finally we are able to provision a VDB. So this VDB and the source at the moment are having exactly the same data. Okay, so let's make some changes to the production DB so that the after the run, the virtual DB should reflect these changes. So I'm using this DB viewer, which is a universal database viewer. It's handy for non-DBA like me, but the color is awful. My apologies. So let's just go duplicate these rows. I need to change this to unique numbers because it's expecting this column expects a unique numbers. And let's also change at the data level. Andrew Lee. Okay, so we added 3 rows and we make 3 data level changes. So let's just save this. So again, this is at the source side. So the source database I've changed has been committed. The VDB remained the same at the end of the process. The idea is that this VDB will be refreshed to the same value as the production changes. Now let's go back to our terminal here and let's kick off our dump job. So our dump job has just started. Now while that is running, let me come over to target and show you the script that I will use for the SCP copy and the IMPD import. So the structure is the same. First, we make sure we're in the right Oracle home and SID. Notice that the SID is this one over here. And then we need to first, from the mount state of the database in the dSource, we need to alter database open because IMPDP will only work if the database is in open state. So yeah, so after we have opened the database, we will SCP the file over from the source, which is 1.21, add this directory, copy everything, and SCP it over to this server, this directory. So once that copy is done, then we execute the IMPD import command here. So Delphix DB, sign in as sysdba. So the directory DataPump has earlier been pre-created to point to the DP IMPD dir. So the dump file that we are expecting is Delphix db.dump, and the log file is Delphix db.log. And then remap schema, we are remapping back to the same name. You can change the target schema if you wish so. And also we make sure that the table exists action is replaced, because the table will definitely exist because I have run this script before. So yeah, so if we find any tables, then it will just replace it. Last but not least, after the import has been successful, it will shut down the database, the dSource, and it will start up in mount mode because the Delphix snap sync expect the dSource to be in mount mode. So come back over here at the source side. As you can see, the import has been successful. Now we can go to our dSource here. And before that, let me just show you the pre-sync hook has been set up to run this that script that I showed you earlier, the one that is doing the SCP and the import. So if we click on the sync button, it will call this script, it will run the SCP, it will run the import, and then finally it will run the Delphix snap sync. So let's go ahead. Now before we do that, let me just set up an environment so that I can show you. So I've added 2 more screen to my Oracle target. So this all the darker screen are showing the Oracle target. So specifically, I've added this to so that we can watch the directory at the target site, the DP import directory. So watch will run, will refresh the screen every 2 seconds. So now you can see that this is the current content of that directory. In particular, note the time, and also note the changes in the size as the SCP command is executed. SCP will always override the target. So these 2 files will be overwritten by the new one that is coming from the source. Now the other screen I open up here is to show the state of the database. And the point here is to hopefully be able to catch the database as it changes from mount to open. And then finally, when the shutdown happen, we will lose connection to the database. Okay, so let's go ahead and kick off our snap. So the first thing that will happen is the SCP. As you can see, it's already changing. The time have changed. Now it's in read-write mode. SCP is still happening. As you can see, it's copying the second files now. So that second files has finished copying. So this state of the database should change fairly soon, I presume. There you go. We have lost connection because we bounced the database. So we need to exit and go back to the database, go back in. And you can see that it has changed back to mounted state so that the step sync can happen. So the dSource have now been updated. So the next step is to go to our VDB and make sure we refresh the VDB with the changes in our dSource. So we take the latest one. So the refresh process has completed, and now the VDB has been refreshed with the latest data from our dSource. So let's go have a look at the database itself. The VDB. This is the state before the refresh. So I'm going to perform a refresh now, but not overwriting this table here, but putting the result into a new tab. So let me just sort this nicely. So you can see the 3 additional rows has been added, and you can also see the data changes that we did in the source, now reflected in the virtual DB. This entire process can be automated and scheduled to take place immediately after each new dump in the source side. The scheduling of the dSource update, it can be either triggered by the event in the source side whenever there is a new dump, or you can just pretty much put in a scheduler to make sure the dSource is updated once a day or a few times a day, depending on when the new dump in the source happens. So as for the VDB, the individual user can update their VDB to the latest changes in the dSource, or they can choose any specific, the latest changes, or they can choose any specific version of the dSource that they want. So that's the entire process of this demonstration. I hope you have enjoyed it, and if you have any question, just contact me. Thank you for watching.